welcome to episode 124 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is December 19th, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So today we are wrapping up the year 2022, and I'm really happy to have Jürgen Thomas back with us. As a preparation for this episode, I looked back at our previous episodes from this year, and I was really surprised actually on all the announcement that we have made in this year. From an infrastructure perspective, with almost 24 terabyte virtual machines, amazingly many Rise on Azure projects, updates with Azure Monitor for SAP, improvements with Azure Backup for SAP, the Quality Checktool, Sentinel, Azure Center for SAP Solutions, Private Link, Teams integration, Power Platform. There are so many things that happened this year, so that I'm really happy to have a discussion with Jürgen to look back at this year, maybe also a small outlook from what to expect next year, and just to see all the amazing things that we have done, that we have accomplished this year. So Jürgen, welcome again to our podcast. And maybe for those that didn't watch the episode last year, maybe you can quickly introduce yourself again, and then maybe let's talk about what we did in 2022.
Exactly. So Jürgen Thomas, as you introduced me, I'm a development lead in Azure Core. My team and I are responsible for SAP workload on Azure, certifications, but also build out of the infrastructure, definition of the infrastructure, but also helping SAP then to run their SaaS services on Azure as they decide to host them on Azure. So deeply involved. The team is spread all over the place, meaning with a center over in the German-speaking area, especially also around the SAP headquarters in Waldorf, and then here in the US, but also not all here in Redmond, Chicago, San Jose, people there, and also in the APAC area where we have people in the team. So it was a pretty exciting year. 24 terabyte, you mentioned it, that is a VM size we worked on for a long time already. And the distinction or the real difference is it's a real virtual machine. I mean, we had this large instance service, bare metal service before, based on customer feedback that we got from customers using the service. We started at around 2020 to engineer another solution that would be exactly like the native virtual machines, as we call native VMs. These are the VMs that you're running on our general fleet of hardware. And engineering took a little bit. SAP was tremendously helpful because we had custom cases that were related to SAP Rise or SAP HANA Enterprise Cloud at that point in time. And so there was a super close collaboration with SAP on that one, also with some of the customers that are meanwhile using it. And all these the differentiation that we wanted to set, also based on the potential customers that SAP and us had in mind, was clearly to distinguish in terms of performance as well. It was clear that the performance of that VM needs to be as close as possible to the hardware, bare metal hardware that we offered in that space. And at that point in time, it was a 16-socket hardware in HANA large instances. So it was clear that it needs to be something like that again. We could not simply pop more memory into our 8-socket and call it then 24 terabyte. It was clear that the customer, that we are talking about the most demanding customer cases. That is what we engineered the hardware for. That is what we engineered the VM for. So at the end, you have now a VM that has 832B CPUs. You can run SLES and Red Hat in there. You can use the premium storage of Ultra Disk Storage or ANF storage that we have HANA certified. and really build it out as a normal, as a complete normal virtual machine, which was done in several cases already with customers who are very successful on that. We even have it S/4HANA scale-out certified, because we do have a that indeed needs more than 24 terabyte of memory. So we basically implemented a scale out for the customer, and so far works very well. And we are building our future roadmap around this virtual machine as well. I mean, we have now we have customers in production in 4 different regions, of which we look at Western Europe, Northern Europe, East US, and our Southeast Asia, Singapore. We have deployments of the hardware going. We have deployments already finished in West US too, where we also are going to onboard the first customers in January, and then we additionally supply at the moment and get the hardware into East US 2 and South Central in the US, where we have customers waiting for that hardware as well to arrive so that we can run the 24 terabyte virtual machines. So pretty big success so far. Certainly a unique thing. The uniqueness of it is it's not a workload based sizing. This is a complete normal sizing where we adhere to the core to memory ratio that we have for the OLTP workload. So, and with 795,000 subs, probably one of the strongest VMs out there, or really the strongest VM out there. So really great program that we did, and great success. A lot of work for clear thing. In 832 vCPUs, not an easy one to configure and also to optimize. But most of the hardware, most of the optimizations that customers do on that hardware, on bare metal, do apply to the virtual machine as well. So take of those customers who sometimes already were running on the same hardware on premise on metal, or predecessor hardware generations of this 16 socket on bare metal at home, did work very well. So that was certainly a great thing. And the nice thing is, with one of the customers, we basically then made the jump to another development that we are to a degree proud of, which is our SAP deployment automation framework.
Yes.
Our GitHub open source project that is Terraform and Ansible based. We basically used that with one of the customers to deploy the whole SAP landscape, including the 24 terabyte VM. There was a lot of investment in our SAP deployment automation framework this year, so made good progress on it, and really are looking forward to extend it quite dramatically as well over the next year. We see a lot of customers looking into it. We have quite a few partners that we are working closely with to extend where these partners use it as a base for their own functionality, and where these partners give us good feedback and even pull requests sometimes to improve proofing or to extend functionality. For us, it's the SAP deployment automation framework. We see it as a great base and foundation where customers and partners can start with. It's not that we think that they take it one-to-one and like deploy it. Sure, possible, but in most of the cases that we saw customers and partners using it, they really saw it as a great foundation to start with, not having the necessity to build their own Terraform modules, Ansible modules to achieve certain things. So that's why we are pushing forward with it. Add new functionality, add new support. For example, we are in a big project with a partner where we do a redeployment of an SAP landscape into Azure that was done originally 2016. Now they want to redeploy to get really all the newest functionalities and architectures into that SAP landscape from Azure architecture. And so that partner decided to work with us to do that with the Terraform Ansible modules from our SAP deployment automation framework. Great success for us, and certainly great learnings that will flow back that we are going to implement then.
That's actually one of the really cool things that I see with the deployment automation framework. First of all, how we work with partners. So I know that we've worked very closely with SUSE, with Red Hat on really building these modules to jointly do some development there. But then, as you said, also to work very closely with partners that are actually then leveraging the deployment framework to use this, as you said, as a great foundation to add their own stuff then on top to make it specific for their use. And that's really something that I extremely like with the whole team that is working there on the deployment framework.
Yeah, exactly. That's the important side of it as well, that we really can, or that these partners, system integrators, managed service providers can use it as a foundation to really build on top of it. And that is our aim, and we certainly want to make the foundation stronger and stronger, having more functionalities included as well. And so with that one, then build it higher and higher, so that partners have to do lesser and lesser with it. And we really have a team working on it. So it's not that we do that on the side a little bit. There are people, there are developers dedicated to it, so that we make progress accordingly. I mean, if you have larger system integrators or managed service providers relying on this foundation, we need to invest in it, and we do that. Still, the nature of open source is helping us tremendously, because we get a lot of suggestions, a lot of improvements suggested. So a really successful project, and it really, I think this year we reached a state where really a few of the system integrator managed service providers saw that the grade of maturity and the grade of or the number of functionalities that we offer is really helping them, and resulted in those companies to really work with us on SAP deployment automation framework. So super pleased with it, and awesome. Now, as we talk about the deployment framework, we also made larger progress about our Azure Center for SAP Solution, or as we call it, ACSS. ACSS is a little bit going the other way around, where on the SDAF, SAP Deployment Automation Framework, we are arguing this is a foundation where customers can take the modules and adapt it into their own frameworks and change and build on top of it. ACSS is addressing more the other case, where you want to install a complete SAP system through Azure Portal, where we introduce an SAP system with its database, with its with its ASCS and SCS, and your application service and the application layer, as one entity, as an object in Azure. Think about an object in Azure, for example, is a VM, is a storage disk. Now we are introducing something that's an SAP system. An SAP system, then again, has many components: application layer, ASCS, database, clustered, non-clustered. And then you can break it down to VM and native Azure objects again. So basically what you are going to be able, or what you are able already in the public preview to see, oh, there's an SAP system. You can install it through our Azure Center for SAP Solutions by providing the installation bits. So far it works for S/4HANA. And or you can register your existing SAP system so that it shows up as an entity in Azure Portal or in Azure. And with that, you can analyze different things. We can apply health checks. So this is, well, we are at the beginning of the whole journey here. So there's a lot more functionality that we intend, besides widening the use case to more SAP releases, NetDB releases, and so on. So basically, that's we are in the public preview. We are very pleased with customers using it so far in the public preview phase. We certainly see a very attractive thing with the use case of registering SAP systems that customers installed for other means, like as stuff like having installed 5 years ago, but now want to register. With us being then able to apply logic like quality checks, health checks, eventually then go further, suggesting database backup policies, all these kinds of integrations that one can do. And so that's development that we are driving with quite a larger development team. And we for the years to come have quite a few plans around. Very unique as well, very differentiating factor for it, no doubt about, that we want to keep up and then really make a SAP system, so to speak, first party citizen in Azure, so to speak, isn't it?
And that's really for me one of the most amazing things that we did. I mean, don't get me wrong, having 24 terabyte is also not so bad, but ACSS, or the Azure Center for SAP Solutions, that's for me something where I really see some amazing potential. I mean, we had Aaron Stern on the show a few episodes back, and he showed us some things about the Azure Center for SAP Solutions, and the very basic things like that you can now start and stop an SAP system, but which doesn't sound so great. But the amazing thing is, now that Azure knows that this is an SAP system, it knows that I need to stop the application server first, and then I stop the database. And for me, that's, again, it's a very small thing, but this really shows where we are going with ACSS and all the amazing opportunities that will come, where we are already doing a lot of development. The teams in India, the IDC, where there's a lot of fantastic work happening with the teams there. So that's something where I am personally extremely excited about what will come in 2023 and beyond on this.
No, absolutely. I mean, the point is, once we have the base where we know about the SAP system, how it's set up, what the clustering is, the high availability clustering, what other components are there. There's a lot of potential that opens up then to do certain things, intelligence to say, hey, look, I'm starting a component of the system, or if I restart that component, I need to take another component down. All these kinds of things are basically the foundations that we can build on top of them. As you mentioned, the restart of a system, then it certainly is not difficult to say, hey, look, now in the future, let's restart that system on a schedule, or let's stop the system on a schedule, let's start the system on a schedule, these kinds of things. That's all possible. A lot of other scenarios, there are a lot of scenarios that we need to prioritize on the timeline as well. Certainly also then quality, that's certainly a bigger one as well. But others, like I mentioned the health checks already now for the third time, is super important, because let's be honest, I mean, when we look at parameters in the Linux, in the particular Linux image, when we look at HANA parameters, when we look at other parameters, it's to a degree confusing how many there are. When we look at pacemaker clusters, a little different number than we suggest or describe in our documentation can have already impact, so that the pacemaker cluster is not behaving as we intended to behave. And so these kind of things we can check subsequently. And also what we want to achieve at the end of the day, that we supply our support with better data, to really investigate customer cases. So there's a huge potential that's opening up. We certainly next year need to materialize on it and work on it to do these different things that we just described, or working to these different directions. But certainly potential is there. We need to execute on it, and we are staffed so that we can do that.
And I actually think these quality checks, especially since you mentioned the pacemaker, what I always thought is, I mean, it's amazing that we are helping customers with the setup of a pacemaker cluster and stuff like that, because doing that is super complicated. But I was always saying, well, now we're helping the customer to set it up, but what is if something changes? What is if there's something, then the customer has no idea anymore because it was set up by an automation or something like that, and now I'm completely lost. With the check tool, we can continuously tell the customer, look, something changed in the configuration. Maybe someone by mistake changed some properties somewhere very below, somewhere in the config file, something which we would never find. But the quality check tool can really then highlight, look, there's a parameter that is not according to our recommendations. And that's again something where we really help customers now with this day 2 operations. So once the system is running, we can help them to really drill down and find the issues, or also provide them with recommendations. Maybe something changed on the Azure side, that now we have other best practices. And that's really something that I very much like about the quality check tool.
That's exactly the point we want to make, or the target we have of the quality checks especially. Well, and then we shouldn't forget our Azure Monitor for SAP solutions as well. And we further build out. We have different monitors in there. NetWeaver, we have the different databases where we extended our offers as well. So meanwhile, we have DB2 on board as well, besides SQL Server and HANA. So that's also work. And the more important thing, we changed the foundations. We changed the service backend, which was from the first version of the service. We got some very serious feedback about the way how it's implemented, where customers were complaining about the fact that there was a small VM running in their VNets that they are certainly responsible for from a security point of view. And so we changed that whole concept to Azure Functions, so that we are not being a virtual machine with an operating system in the customer's security parameter. And with that, relieve the customer from taking measures or doing patching there. So that's an important. That probably was the biggest work to be done. And then at the same token, leave the interfaces to a degree so that we didn't have to redo all the different monitors that we had. And so that's also an area that we further look into, the other databases that SAP supports to have those plugins, and then see how we can add more data to, especially out of NetWeaver as well. So we have different plans there, not slowing down there either. Highly interesting project. It's certainly that we don't want to replace solution managers. So there are no plans to say, I want to go into business process monitoring. We really think the strength of the product is the combination of telemetry data that we have out of our infrastructure, and then having, let's say, basic information about the operating system, the databases, and functionality of the application instances, to see interaction, to see impact of the infrastructure on these functionalities, on these components, or otherwise other way around. As you see an impact that an application instance can't get the throughput that it's supposed to deliver, or that it delivered before, then you can basically track back into our telemetry without big problems. It really see, oh yeah, there was an issue based on the Azure telemetry and so on. So that's basically the idea of it, and that's the area we are focusing at this point in time into. And so that's there's still a lot to do. It's not only in the foundations of the service, but also then in the graphical display and how we present the data. And so looking pretty good as well. Public preview with AMS 2.0. We plan for next year as well to go general available. So pretty excited about that one. And customer feedback so far is good. Customers always come back with more suggestion, more data data still to collect. Some very good feedback also from the way how they want this data displayed and arranged. So that gives us a good idea. So if you have 20, 30, 40 customers, then you can figure out what are the streams, what are the directions customers wanna see. Gives us enough material to prioritize certain areas to develop first and to go into first. So from that side, very good project. And then not to forget the security space. With Sentinel, we are continuing to make progress with SAP components, especially S/4HANA NetWeaver components. Also a very important area, because we believe that, especially in the security space and threat detection, single pane of glass is important. Yeah. You don't want to have 5, 6, 7 different systems for your landscape of applications, infrastructure that you deployed, because you can be sure in some you have overlap, but in some others you might not have overlap. You might have gaps where things go lost. And so our belief still is that Sentinel is the product to be that single pane of glass, and with that we work hard to get the SAP, relevant SAP data, and we also certainly do collaboration with SAP in order to get where we wanna go. And I also, for the year 2023, I would assume we can expect a little bit more in the SAP space coming for Sentinel. So yeah, looks also pretty good on that.
Yeah, I think especially since security is not something that is isolated to an SAP system or isolated to the Microsoft systems, but it's really you as a company, the whole IT that you're running. And I think that's where Sentinel obviously provides fantastic insights in the Microsoft side, like what's happening on my Windows servers, or what's happening in Azure Active Directory, or in Office 365. But then I can correlate all this information now also with signals that I'm getting from SAP. And that's really one of the huge benefits that I see with the threat protection integration of Sentinel with SAP here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, look at cases. I mean, you have a lot of different software until let's say an electronic or order that was sent in EDI to you until that really is processed by an SAP system. You have multi-layer software systems in front of your SAP system for supplier of use to invoice you electronically. That is usually not hitting directly on your SAP systems. You have several layers, hopefully several layers of software within between, not only because of security checks, but also because you want to avoid bursts on your backend system, so it balance things out. These kinds of things, at least that's what we are doing here in Microsoft in our architecture. And so you might then see you might see how you get an increased number of login attempts on an SAP system that might correlate them with one of those other systems sending tons of RFCs. And these kinds of things, that's what you can do easily with Sentinel. And again, as you said, not limited to SAP. This is the tool for the whole company, for all the software and so on. So that's a product we certainly have further investments and future investments, so especially also around the SAP space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you mention all those what we achieve in this year, I mean, we all know that the Microsoft IT, that Microsoft is actually a big user, or that we assume almost everything what SAP have on SAP software portfolio. So how much of those tools we are able to utilize internally in Microsoft IT?
Yeah, I mean, the Sentinel is certainly a big one. kicked in at the right product. It's certainly a big one. That's in use already pretty heavily, especially around this with our complete landscape stack that does our major business processes. Again, that's not only SAP. SAP is a component. It's a backend component. There's a lot of surrounding applications that are involved in those business processes, so that we capture all that data and do all the analysis. So that's fully being utilized. When you look at the other products we talked about before, ACSS, our Azure Monitor for SAP Solutions, especially with the Azure Monitor for SAP Solutions, our IT is involved in development. They are one of the biggest feedback sources that we have. Mm-hmm. So far, it's not implemented yet with them, but certainly they are certainly looking at it. ACSS is also not being used yet because one has to admit of our 100+ SAP systems, there are over 100 still on Windows and SQL Server. That's an area where we need to invest in ACSS quite a bit. We have, I think, probably around a few dozen HANA systems, S4 HANA systems as well, or HANA-driven logic by SAP. So again, they did look at it. They are also giving great feedback. The 24 terabyte VMs, fortunately, they don't need them yet. Our HANA systems are still a little bit smaller. So we can make it with the normal M series, even the smaller ones still. So we are not that drastic. We look at our SAP landscape. I mean, our ERP database. We still run the normal business suite on SQL Server. Database probably going towards somewhere between 25 and 30 terabyte these days. And so it's a sizable piece. It's running on as database server on an M192 with 2 terabyte. So works pretty reliable. Works pretty well. Has quite a number of application instances in front of it. The usual availability zone deployment across different availability zones in one of the regions, Azure regions, and then has a cross-region disaster recovery setup towards the eastern side of the American continent. And this is true for independent. This is true for the HANA-driven systems or SQL Server-driven systems. There are certain principles that the team worked through that are applied to in terms of HA and disaster recovery. That these principles are applied to all the systems, need to be applied to all the systems. And so far, it worked very well. I mean, it's been as successful as we finished the deployments into Azure already in February 2018. Yeah. Since we are operating our SAP landscape pretty successful in Azure.
Yeah, I mean, Jürgen, one of the, I would say, core infrastructure part is Premium V2. Which is relatively recently announced. And actually, I was checking also the documentation, who are the authors. The first guy was Jürgen Thomas. So for me, it was cool that you still do work on development of some of the documentation pieces as well.
Oh, I personally like writing documentation. Like on the weekend, I just did some pieces again, and I just. This morning, I released the PR got merged into our availability zone proximity placement group documentation. And for this week, where I have a little bit less workload on meetings, I will do a few more. But the Premium Storage V2 is a good topic. I mean, this was from when I purely look on the investments our team did. And look into the storage space. We had two large investment spaces. The one was Azure Files, NFS on Azure Files, and then we had Premium Storage V2. Premium Storage V2 for us is super important from a strategic point of view, also from a competitive point of view. And so we were pleasantly surprised in the development phase. I had a person now engaged with that development team for a whole year before we went channel available with that storage. As we developed the stack, how we got the latency down to 0.8-ish of a millisecond, really great. So no write accelerator needed for the redo log anymore. And then as well, the way how you can configure it, what it's coming with, and in a lot of cases, the 3000 IOPS per disk and the 125 megabyte, especially in the smaller space, are often sufficient. Customers having a possibility to harvest a lot of free IOPS and a lot of free throughput by using multiple disks, or the customer deciding, hey, look, I have 1200 megabyte per second throughput and 80,000 IOPS per disk. I can so decide not to do logical volume managers or storage spaces and then simply take one large disk and put enough IOPS, put enough throughput to it, and I'm fine. Yeah. So in that is something that I left deliberately open in the documentation for HANA, where I definitely, where I'm like, yeah, you should, as a minimum, our documentation around storage and the configuration of storage is always kind of a minimum. That's a base to start with. It doesn't mean that your system, your super high load system is working then flawlessly. You need to, but you have a point to start with, and then you can see what the system's doing. On the other side, we had hostess that then told us already, hey, you go way too far. We can do it smaller. Well, it's fine. I mean, that's your individual case. But matter of fact, what we left open deliberately there is really how many disks you're going to choose. Because now, again, you have these two possibilities. On the one side, if I get 3000 IOPS per disk and 125 megabytes for free as throughput. And so now if I need a gigabyte of throughput and a few terabyte of disks, I can choose how I want to do that. And that's a nice thing. And we don't want to push either way. We think we leave that to the customers. Feedback was from some customers that they don't like logical volume managers. Others were like, we always did that. We did that on metal Unix systems already, having a logical volume manager. That's in all our processes. That's the normal thing. Fine thing. Can do both. Yep. Price-wise, really an advantage. Now, that's all said. As we praise Premium Storage V2, there are still a few things that we need to deliver from a schedule. For example, availability set support is not yet in. That's going to come. Then what's probably going to be next to be released is snapshot support. With snapshot support, we automatically get the Azure Backup support for it as well, to do snapshot backups and so on. And then we have a few other things that we still need to deliver. And we need to deliver the storage as well in more regions, because at the moment, the number of regions are limited that we have, and that's also on the plan for the year 2023 to make that premium storage version 2 way more present in many other different regions. And so I'm looking forward to it.
I like the fact that basically that also pricing and features are separate. Like, okay, one thing is size, another thing is IOPS, another thing is throughput. So yes. I mean, basically, because the laws sometimes also change. I mean, you can always, even the IOPS and throughput change depending on what do you do, right? Yeah. You can change on the fly and turn it back, meaning, and then if you need more, you change it, you pay more, and then you change it back. Yeah. So, I mean, that was not so straightforward with the V1. I mean, you could change some of the performance. Yeah,
but it was still a little bit more cumbersome. And I mean, also when we look at it from how the pricing set up, the IOPS in megabytes in throughput are not the dominating kind of component in pricing. The capacity is certainly one of the more one. So we'll see how customers are using it, and it's we are looking forward. The big thing, or the good thing for us as well, is that it does enable for smaller VMs E-Series version 5. We have HANA certified E-Series version 5. That so far, in theory, in order to meet the KPIs of SAP, would have required Ultra Disk for the redo log, because write accelerator is not working. But write accelerator is restricted to M-Series and will remain restricted to M-Series. And so the E-Series now, with the new storage of Premium Storage V2, we'll get the KPIs for the redo log. And really, I mean, if you have 32, 64 CPUs, hard to imagine that you need more or better latency than 0.8. So that is then making E-Series version 5 more attractive again. And so that's one of our hopes as well. And then
plus the data disk are also benefiting from the sub-millisecond latency, right?
Absolutely. Writing save points, writing checkpoints, if we talk about traditional databases, certainly is benefiting. The other area where we still put a lot of efforts in was the NFS on AFS. We released it with GA last year. In November, has the ability to do zonal replication, asynchronous zonal replication as well. So that is there's an area where we still have do a lot of improvements, mostly around performance. Well, not so much like just reading the latency or the grab the data, but more around metadata latency, where we see potential to still improve. So we want to leverage that potential. We want to improve in that space. So there are several stages of improvements that we are in the middle of. And our team here is steadily then helping the development team to run the checks to see whether we are going the right direction, whether the estimations of gains that we have with the different steps and the different milestones in development are true, whether we really hit the targets here. So that's exciting work as well to see, and still an investment on our side.
Sorry. Right. So when you mention these directions, we are always with SAP on Azure topic. We are playing on the edge with big machines, with the latest storage. How much of those what we are delivering for SAP on Azure? Of course, we are not building those machines just for SAP on Azure scenarios, but how much of those what we are bringing in SAP on Azure is reflecting to other scenarios, or improving our platform services, improving our artificial intelligence? So do you have experience?
I mean, let's be pretty clear. I mean, take the 24 terabyte VM. There's really at the moment we didn't see any other scenario than HANA had needed. But on the other side, Premium Storage V2 or NFS on AFS is certainly way more broader applicable. There are other areas or scenarios of other software that certainly needed, especially Premium Storage V2. We have a lot of different others, and other software, other workload scenarios. Even on the lower end, low end is relatively, even in the space of let's say 1 to 4 terabyte memory, there are a lot of other database scenarios as well. One of the future directions in those areas is certainly getting more storage bandwidth. This is kind of a common feedback that we have with those customers, that the storage, especially for larger database workloads, I mean, 192 vCPU machine is today a very capable machine. There's a lot of CPUs you get there. And so even if 2 or 4 terabyte, if you put a 30 terabyte database on it, our Oracle, DB2, SQL Server, of which we have quite a few running with or without SAP workload, is a very demanding thing. And so on the storage bandwidth as well. So one of the feedbacks is the storage bandwidth can be a bit tight. So this is something we are going to tackle next year with a new generation hardware that we are using to put M series on. And so we are going to tackle that. That's a big thing in next year where we tackle the network and storage throughput on our new hardware. And yeah, that's basically benefiting then other scenarios as well, not only SAP.
Wow.
Premium storage I mentioned already, V2, a lot of other scenarios. What also benefits others is certainly all the quality and assurance and quality measures that we are doing. There's a lot of work that went into the hardware, or it's already now rolling out to this large M series, talking about compensating for certain failure scenarios, having redundancy, and all these kinds of things. That's certainly strengthening in already now, and certainly more in the year 2023. That's then in the rollout and then getting more and more numbers of hardware in that has these things, or having the right level of host operating system that offers then more functionality to have redundancy. So that's a big there are big developments taking place there.
I think one cross scenario is probably Azure Backup. Sometimes customer complaining that we should have enterprise level backup. Of course, we have a HANA backend. We have now snapshots in preview. So what is our plan for Azure Backup? Do we want to support more databases with our Azure?
Absolutely, we want to support more databases, especially the ones that are SAP supported. SAP is a big driver, or SAP workload is a big driver in that space. And so we take the SAP use cases to work with Azure Backup team to get more databases supported. I also lately assigned one of our developers in Germany to help them out in a certain space, and also have other people here and there assigned to work with Azure Backup to implement logic and functionality for other databases. So go beyond HANA and SQL Server. So that's important to us as well. And let's be clear. I mean, customers, as they move into Azure, there's a certain expectation that certain tooling can be replaced by Azure native functionality services. It's customer doesn't want to bring necessarily does not want to bring their backup infrastructure now in an infrastructure as a service manner into Azure. Now there certainly are customers that are using SaaS services of different backup vendors that are hosted on Azure as well. But nevertheless, I mean, there's a lot of cases where customers are pretty clear in their expectations, and this is like, I want to have one backup system. Ideally, it's native driven by the cloud, by my cloud that I'm selecting. And so we need to make sure that we are getting more complete here, but it's definitely on the plan, especially for SAP scenarios. So, that's definitely. But when we look in the next year, it's really from my team a lot about the new generation hardware that comes in with different VM types, where we need to go through a lot of certifications with SAP, where we certainly have interesting projects with HANA development, where we have interesting projects with Intel as well, where we're working closely with our Linux vendors and not vendors, these partners here. I just came out of a call where we had a development call again with SUSE. We have similar calls with Red Hat. So we are working pretty closely with them. We are working on getting new cluster scenarios enabled and tested, and we just got over the last months several prototypes as well from one of the Linux partners in testing out testing out different resource agents that they had in mind for SAP HANA that improve here and there a little bit. So we're working super closely with them. So this is basically, I think, over the last 3 years, a super positive development where we got closer and closer with our partners, SUSE and Red Hat, to really on Azure get the experience, create a better experience for customers hosting the SAP workload. So that's good.
When you mention HA, so I can't not to remind you on this new development on Pacemaker to enable application servers clustering on the same cluster as the ASCS, so which is also bringing consolidation, so to say.
Yeah.
I believe also one of the big requirements from customers and partners.
Absolutely. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, the point is, we are meanwhile at a point, I think, from where we can argue, what sure further development in, I want to even have more terabytes of memory than 24. Well, there's certainly, one can make a case about it, but the majority case is about help me to get a better TCO of my landscapes in on the infrastructure. And I think this always was the case. I mean, think back 10, 15 years, you always had the same discussion. You had these discussions already on premise with customers. It's like, hey, how can I melt down the number of virtual machines or servers in order to run on a better TCO? And Azure is no exception here. I mean, it's like, hey, now I'm running an SAP landscape with 900 or 1,000 VMs. How can I make that lesser? How can I make them smaller? How can I make it more cost efficient and effective? And that's the whole thing. Maybe with our architectures need to tailor to as well. And so that's certainly then Premium Storage V2 being one of them, where we know, hey, this is a cost from a cost perspective is a better alternative than our Premium Storage V1. So what we are going to do this next year as well is basically documenting for customers how they can get from one storage to the other storage with the least downtime. These kinds of things. This is very important, and so we need to make sure that our customers can leverage the lower TCO of functionalities that we provide and we release. So that's certainly then again a topic or a bigger topic next year, a continuous topic as well. It's not something new coming up, but it's then with especially Premium Storage V2 will be one of those bigger ones then. Yep. So what else? Yeah, Holger, you wanted to...
No, what else? I was also looking at the time because I think you covered already a lot of things, but we are still on this infrastructure level, I would say, more or less. And I wanted to highlight a few other
Holger.
really cool things.
We need to make Holger happy as well, right?
No, I quickly wanted to mention a few things that I thought were really, really amazing that we did this year. So if we look at the data space, we released this CDC connector for Azure Data Factory, where we simplify the way how we can really connect to an SAP system and basically merge the data from an SAP system to Synapse, and then really take it from there, do machine learning on this area. So I thought this CDC connector, which is now GA, I mean, we had Ulrich Christ on the show talking about this, but I think that's one area where we see a lot of customers now really using this already in a very big way, actually. So I think that was one highlight. Again, not as cool maybe as a 24 terabyte virtual machine or a premium V2 disk, but something where I think we see a lot of customers really adopting this kind of integration.
Definitely. Not talking about the Teams, isn't it? The Teams integration, which is then a level higher again. For one is the data integration, but now you have the business process integration.
Exactly, and again, I mean, obviously for me, the Teams integration was something super cool, because that was one of my main topics in 2022, basically, and then having Satya showcasing this at the keynote is always really cool. If you see your CEO showing something that you have been working on, I think that was really great. If we look at the Power Platform, I just saw that end of last week we went GA with the new ERP connector with a lot of new templates that customers can now leverage to connect their Power Platform with an SAP system. I think again something where we see a lot of customers waiting for this, or I mean, adopting this low code, no code story, and I think that's something that was really great. And then where it all fits together. I mean, if you use Power Platform with SAP, you want to have single sign-on, obviously.
Yeah.
So we worked very closely with the teams at SAP to have Azure Active Directory connected to the SAP system, where we had a lot of new references, basically how to set up single sign-on, and I mean that's the foundation for any integration. Yeah. So that was also really cool, that the work that we really jointly did together there with SAP.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, you see me that I'm always a little bit more infrastructure focused, because
which is good.
What I'm doing. And then you absolutely, you guys did great work in that space of integrations, building the foundations with SSO, or was it the name, Private Link between BTP and the Azure services, foundations in security, privacy, and in this space, which is super important then to build other integrations on top of it. Who you're absolutely right. Who wants to use today an integration where they still need to type in user and password? I mean, that's it's not what you do today. Nothing that you want to do use today. At least not in a broader space with thousands of users. So yeah, that's these integrations, AAD integrations are super important, and so that was great progress made last year as well, or this year as well, 2022. We are not yet in 23. So. It's still this year, yeah.
Still time.
No, absolutely, that's super important. Not only super important, now the impact is also tremendous from a user scenarios that they can do, especially with the Teams integration, business process integration we have there. That's super. It's super important to us as well. With my team, obviously. I am creating more the experience on the infrastructure side, and building immediately on top of the infrastructure. That's why our talk here was a lot of infrastructure talk,
which is good. And I mean, for example, I know from your team we worked very closely with Robert Biro on the RISE integration. So outlining a few integration scenarios. How, if I'm a customer running RISE on SAP on Azure, so how can I leverage this with other Azure services? And I think we created, or Robert actually created, a really nice docs entry that outlines how to connect these. So I think I think we're working extremely well together, both on the infrastructure, on the integration layer, and that's what's making this whole thing really cool.
Yeah, I mean, just one word again to Robert Biro, who did the great work on creating the document and keeping the document updated. Creating document is one. You need to keep it updated. I think these integration scenarios between RISE and Azure services, or integration scenarios where SAP customers are running parts of the complete SAP landscape in RISE, and other products that are surrounding the SAP landscape in their own Azure subscriptions, are becoming super important. And this is certainly something in the 2023 where we need to invest a little bit more in really highlighting these and explaining these and what's possible, what's not possible, how do you do these integrations. Super important as well, because that's these RISE SAP. We talked about the SAP landscape. My SAP systems are not alone. There's a whole surround layer. There are many different software pieces involved to get an order in, to get the invoice out, and to have the invoice electronically paid, or to pay my suppliers that invoice me electronically. So there's a lot of different components involved, and in many of those components that support these business processes or make these business processes complete end to end are not hosted in the Azure subscription by RISE.
Mm-hmm.
They are hosted by the customer either on premise, or we see it a lot in Azure as well. And so making these integrations flawlessly, so that single sign-on working, everything's working perfectly fine, is a big topic for next year as well. We certainly are going to work with SAP and make sure that these things are working, and we have it documented accordingly, so that that it's not like every customer thinks or feels that they need to break new ground here.
Yeah, perfect.
So it's a good topic and good area that you brought up there. Yes.
Oh, cool. I actually think that's maybe a nice closing. That we covered the infrastructure pieces, we covered the different Azure services, we covered the integration layer on top. And as you said, I mean, there's still a lot of work for 2023.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we are on a really exciting track there to work with our customers, with our partners, to really help them run SAP.
Yeah. It was so funny, like some of you know, in the year 2014, that is when SAP and us signed the contract about SAP supporting Azure for the SAP workload with very tiny VMs at that point in time. Think about it, the VMs that had 1,500 subs or something like that, or 2,000, and now we're talking VM of 795,000 subs. But one of the central people in my team that worked in that certification in 2014, he came to me and said, like, you know what, now we did that. Now, I mean, what are we going to do next? It's not good anymore. And so today we are laughing about it, he and I, because first of all, he's doing nothing else than a lot of certification work, but we quadrupled the number of team members between 2014 and today, in order to do all the work around Azure with SAP, and we could have more people if you could get more headcounts. We would hire more people to do more, especially in the integration space. It's a never-ending topic. I mean, there's nothing where we say now we stop, because there are new scenarios, there's new functionality delivered by SAP, new business functionality where you can do more integrations. They are on the hardware. Or in the infrastructure, you always can go further with SUSE, Red Hat, but also with the Windows operating system, hardly mentioned here. There's always where you can do a kick more, where you can improve here, where you can improve there. And then again, there are things like our new storage. There are other things that take for example, Elasticsearch that we released as well this year already. Well, I would argue there's something that we need to look at in the year 2023 as well. How would that fit for SAP workload? How can we lower the total cost of ownership using Elasticsearch, or what is missing on the path to host SAP workload in a more cost-efficient and cost-effective way? So the work doesn't stop. The work might have changed from a pure I'm certifying certain infrastructure pieces still we need to do that, but that's not all the work. The work became the work became more broader, and but it's there, and it's a lot, and the chances and possibilities are nearly endless, and so
it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. Absolutely, absolutely. You learn personally. I mean, it was interesting. Lately, we had in a management team of my direct manager, direct reports, and basically leadership team. We had these kind of round where we say, let's talk about everyone, introduce everyone, and so that everybody knows each other better. And one of the reasons was, especially with people like me now, nearly 27 years with Microsoft, why the hell are you still here? And I mean, justified question. I mean, especially in the high-tech industry, you see a lot of people changing companies, and so I'm still. And one of the major answer on my side was that it's never boring. You learn every day, and you have the chance to learn every day. I mean, it's also like, yeah, I wanna pick up new things. I wanna look into a new technology. Does it apply to what I want to do with SAP? Talking to other people that develop new technology and saying, hey, if you do this and that, then I can eventually use it to the benefit of the SAP workload on Azure, on the integration with SAP workload. You're always learning, and the great thing is you don't need to sit down like in the university or in school to study books. And no, you're learning by doing these, by trying these things out, by prototyping, and then having talks to great people, and really also the feeling that you move something forward. And that's really why I'm still here after 27 years, and why I still enjoy every day.
And because you want to be a guest on our shows also, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the main motivation.
Yeah.
No, Jürgen, I think that's a fantastic closing. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for all the insight and this great look back at 2022. I think that was really amazing. And again, I was really surprised how many things we have accomplished in 2022, and I can't wait to see what we'll do in 2023.
Exactly. Okay, guys.
Thank you so much.
Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We'll see each other next year then.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.